in, what's his name? Anthony Richardson, yeah. Anthony Richardson wants out of Indianapolis. He ready to go. He's like, man, I need to be starting. I don't like it here. He want to get out. And that opens up a spot for Shedeur. When God closes one door, he opens another. He closes the door for Anthony in Indianapolis, and I do believe that'll open the door for Shedeur. Hopefully Anthony can land in a spot on a team where he's happy to play. If Anthony does leave, Indianapolis is going to need a quality backup player. Although Shedeur's goal is to eventually be a starter in the NFL, he'll take what he can get right now. They were talking about how in the meantime and in between time, Shedeur has spent a lot of time in the projects doing outreach programs. And what tripped me out is some of the responses from people on Yahoo in the chat.
Let's break this down. The Cleveland Browns were supposed to be past this. After Joe Flacco's improbable push to the 2023 playoffs, it felt like the franchise had finally turned a corner. A journeyman quarterback, a locker room rallying together, and a city star for relevance finally had something to cling to. The script was written. Deshaun Watson would return, healthy and settled, and 2024 would be the year Cleveland broke through. But instead of progress, the Browns delivered regression. What should have been the beginning of an era became something critics called unwatchable. And make no mistake, that word doesn't just sting, it cuts. It's not describing a bad game or a disappointing loss. It's a wholesale rejection of the product on the field, a condemnation of the organization itself. Yet in Cleveland, that label isn't new. It's almost tradition. For decades, the Browns have been perfecting the art of breaking their fans' hearts, which is why the decision not to fully embrace Shedeur Sanders is igniting such fury, both inside and outside the locker room. Sanders isn't just another rookie with potential. To the veterans on this roster, he represents something the Browns have rarely had: hope. The kind of hope that can rewire the identity of a team. And when leadership refuses to seize that chance, when they recycle aging quarterbacks and hedge their bets on future drafts, players can see it for what it is: fear disguised as strategy. The whispers coming out of Berea are louder than usual. Veterans are questioning why the team is clinging to the past instead of building the future. They've seen Sanders in practice. They've watched him digest playbooks, anticipate defenses, and carry himself like someone who belongs. They don't see a project. They see a quarterback ready to grow. But instead of nurturing that potential, the Browns are scouting for his replacement. Owner Jimmy Haslam has openly admitted they'll be in the quarterback market in 2026. Reports confirm that Stefanski and top executives were spotted at marquee college matchups, credentialed to evaluate Arch Manning, Garrett Nussmeier, and Cade Klubnik. Imagine being Shedeur Sanders, sitting on the bench, waiting for your shot, while your coach and GM spend Saturdays eyeing your successors. The optics are devastating, and the players feel it too. They know what that signals: a lack of belief, a lack of urgency, a lack of respect for the roster in front of them. One local station, 92.3 The Fan, captured the moment perfectly. You can't wave the white flag on a season and expect to hold the locker room. That's exactly what's happening. Every rep given to Joe Flacco, every scouting trip leaked to the press, chips away at trust. This isn't just frustration anymore. It's boiling into something more dangerous: revolt. Players are losing faith not in their own ability, but in the leadership meant to guide them. And that fracture, once it begins, is nearly impossible to repair. Because here's the truth: Shedeur Sanders has already shown the traits you can't teach. He's been battle-tested in big games. He's displayed poise beyond his years. His football IQ is undeniable. And perhaps most importantly, he has the charisma, the swagger, to ignite an entire city desperate for someone to believe in. Veterans know windows in the NFL are short. Careers end abruptly. Opportunities vanish in a blink. So when they see a potential franchise quarterback being wasted, it's not just disappointing, it's insulting. It tells them their sacrifices, their grind, their belief in the process might all be for nothing. And Kevin Stefanski? His credibility is evaporating. Every practice that keeps Sanders with his second team, every public scouting trip that hints at 2026 is a reminder that he may not be the leader this roster thought he was. His seat is warming and fast. So here's the million-dollar question hanging over Cleveland like a storm cloud. How long can Stefanski ignore his players? How long can the Browns gamble on safe, conservative decisions that keep them mired in mediocrity? And how long before Haslam decides a coaching change is easier than letting this slow-motion implosion continue? The Browns stand at a crossroads. On one side, more of the same, cautious decisions, recycle quarterbacks, and another year wasted. On the other side, risk, chaos, the chance to hand the keys to a young quarterback who might just change everything. The players know which path they want. The fans know which path they want. The only question is whether the men in charge are willing to listen before it's too late. What about you? Are the veterans right to demand Shedeur Sanders takes the reins? Or should Cleveland stay the course with Kevin Stefanski's plan? And when the dust settles, what will this franchise look like a year from now? The Browns' future hangs on that answer.
It's in his pedigree. He is not going to be happy. He's obviously frustrated. Just when he looked like he was doing real well, he had a really good preseason game where he threw a couple of touchdowns, he gets injured. And now it looks like he's going to get some touches. He's going to be able to play, but I don't think he'll start. I don't think he's going to get the starting shot because he's two quarterbacks behind in the rotation. Which brings us to the two-time Super Bowl champion, Indianapolis Colts. Now, the Colts got a problem. They have their backup quarterback in, what's his name? Anthony Richardson, yeah. Anthony Richardson wants out of Indianapolis. He ready to go. He like, man, I need to be starting. I don't like it here. He want to get out. And that opens up a spot for Shedeur. When God closes one door, he opens another. He closes the door for Anthony in Indianapolis, and I do believe that'll open the door.
Let's be honest here, because this situation is spiraling, and the truth isn't making it onto your television screens. What we're witnessing in Cleveland right now isn't just a quarterback controversy. It's the birth of a storm, one that could reshape the future of the Browns. And at the center of it all is Shedeur Sanders, a young quarterback preparing to make the smartest move of his career. When the Browns drafted Sanders with the 5th overall pick in the 2025 NFL Draft, the expectation was simple. This was the moment Cleveland finally had their guy. Shedeur wasn't some project. He wasn't some lottery ticket. This is a kid who's been a starter every step of his life, who carries himself with a mentality carved from winning. Championship DNA isn't just a phrase with him. It's in his bloodline. This is the son of Deion Sanders, a player raised under the spotlight, groomed to succeed when the lights are brightest. And in the preseason, he lived up to every ounce of that hype. Not flashes, not glimpses, magic. He threw touchdowns with the kind of poise you don't see from rookies. He led scoring drives that made fans believe they were watching the start of something special. It felt inevitable. The Browns had their future, and he was ready now. But then came a gut punch. Instead of giving him the reins, the organization buried him. Not second string. Third, behind Joe Flacco, a veteran who has already shown his ceiling, and another name that wouldn't turn heads in any other locker room. Imagine that. One of the most electric prospects of this generation, a quarterback who had single-handedly revived the Colorado Buffaloes program, reduced to carrying a clipboard on Sundays. And here's where it gets ugly. The veterans on this roster, they're not blind. They watch Sanders every single day in practice. They see the way he commands the huddle, the velocity of his throws, the speed with which he processes defenses. They know what he brings, the leadership, the football IQ, the energy. And they're asking the same question fans are screaming from the stands. Why isn't he starting? The truth, according to people close to the situation, has nothing to do with ability. Nobody doubts Shedeur's talent. Nobody questions if he's ready. The problem is organizational. The Browns, a franchise long haunted by its own mistakes, don't seem to know how to handle a superstar when one lands in their lap. Instead of nurturing him, instead of building around him, they're obsessed with the future, with 2026 draft boards, with quarterbacks who don't even wear NFL jerseys yet. And in the process, they're ignoring the one franchise player they already have, sitting right there on their roster. That's the kind of mismanagement that doesn't just waste potential. It fractures locker rooms, it erodes trust, and it leaves players wondering if leadership is committed to winning it all. This isn't just a football problem. It's an identity crisis. And for Shedeur Sanders, it might be the moment that forces him to take control of his own destiny.
Some of the responses from people on Yahoo in the chat. When the news hit these internet streets that Shedeur could possibly be traded to another team, the uncivilized mutts hopped in the comments and uncivilized. Check out some of the comments. Wait a sec. The press had him as the starter after his legendary showing in the first preseason game against the cheerleaders. Why wouldn't he engage with the community? He isn't playing football and he loves the attention. Throws to the equipment guys. Ha ha ha. That's hilarious and humiliating for a wannabe legend. Here we go again with the Colorado legend nonsense from the sporting news. Once upon a time, the sports news used to be a respected publication. Another one says, legend has lost all meaning. His so-called impression in the local community is a stunt to try to silence his critics. Give him the boot. This one uncivilized mutt who quoted Colorado legend said so because the article called Shedeur a Colorado legend. Yet another uncivilized mutt said, again, definitely not a legend. Another said, can we get a few writers at Yahoo who know something about football?
And don't even get me started on the hate this kid has been receiving. The moment whispers began circulating that Shedeur Sanders might be looking for a way out of Cleveland, the critics pounced. Social media flooded with takes, and not the insightful kind. These weren't football breakdowns or rational debates about roster strategy. These were personal attacks, the kind of vitriol that crosses the line between sports commentary and outright disrespect. His community outreach was labeled a publicity stunt. His contributions at Colorado were questioned. Some even had the audacity to suggest he didn't deserve to be remembered as a legend in Boulder. But those voices miss the truth. They don't see the bigger picture. Shedeur Sanders isn't just a quarterback waiting on the sideline. While the Browns keep him shelved, he's been pouring into his community, spending time in neighborhoods where hope is scarce, creating programs that give kids a glimpse of a different future, and using his platform to show that success isn't limited to the field. That's not a marketing campaign. That's character. That's leadership. And that's exactly the type of presence NFL franchises dream about when they talk about building a culture. Which brings us to Indianapolis. The timing could not be more perfect. Anthony Richardson has made it clear his time in Indy is coming to an end. He wants out. He wants a fresh start, a place where he can play, grow, and prove himself. And while that saga unfolds, it opens the door for Sanders in a way that almost feels too scripted to be coincidence. The Colts have a history of taking chances on young quarterbacks. They know the value of developing talent, of investing in a player who can lead a franchise for the next decade. This is the same organization that built around Peyton Manning, that found ways to unleash Andrew Luck, and that has never shied away from putting the future in the hands of someone they believe in. Unlike Cleveland, where conservative decisions and recycled veterans continue to clog the depth chart, Indianapolis has the infrastructure and the mindset to bet on upside. And Shedeur Sanders? He fits that mold perfectly. His arm talent, mobility, and composure align seamlessly with what the Colts like to do offensively. Pair him with Indianapolis' young core of weapons, and suddenly you're not just talking about a quarterback change. You're talking about a cultural reset, a jolt of energy, ticket sales, national headlines, everything a franchise searching for identity could ask for. And let's make one thing clear. This isn't about entitlement. Sanders isn't demanding a trade because he feels owed something. He's demanding it because he knows his worth. He's seen what happens when young quarterbacks waste away in bad systems, waiting years for opportunities that never come. He's not willing to let that be his story. He got hurt in the preseason just as he was catching fire, but in that short stretch, he showed exactly why he was such a coveted prospect. Pinpoint throws, mobility under pressure, poise in chaotic moments. He's ready, and he knows it. As for Colorado, the hate there is even more misplaced. Because if we're being honest, when was the last time anyone outside the Rocky Mountains cared about that program before Deion and Shedeur arrived? He turned Colorado football into must-watch TV. He brought energy, recruits, national exposure, everything the program had been missing for years. In just 2 seasons, he transformed irrelevance into relevance. That's impact. That's legacy. And to downplay that is to ignore how radically he changed the trajectory of that school. But here's the part that makes this story truly compelling. Shedeur isn't letting the noise rattle him. He's staying focused. This trade demand isn't about running from competition. It's about running toward opportunity. It's about taking control of his own destiny instead of letting a mismanaged organization write his story for him. Because let's be real, loyalty only works when it goes both ways. If Cleveland believed in Shedeur, if they were committed to developing him, we wouldn't even be here. But when you bury a first-round pick behind stopgap veterans, when you spend more energy scouting quarterbacks 2 years away from the draft than investing in the one you already have, that's not loyalty. That's incompetence. And now, both franchises stand to benefit from a deal. Cleveland gets compensation to fuel their rebuild and avoids the tension of keeping a future star caged on the bench. Indianapolis gets the spark they've been craving, a quarterback with the talent, confidence, and charisma to elevate an entire organization overnight. 4 weeks now, the writing has been on the wall. Veterans questioning coaching decisions. Fans losing patience. A front office signaling they care more about 2026 than 2025. All of it points to one conclusion. It's time for change. Shedeur Sanders did not enter this league to be anyone's third-string quarterback. He entered to win, to lead, to electrify, to become a star. If Cleveland won't give him that platform, Indianapolis very well might. The only question now is whether the Browns will recognize the inevitable and make this move before they lose more credibility with their players and their fans. Because one thing is certain, Shedeur Sanders is going to shine in this league, with or without Cleveland's blessing. So what do you think? Should Sanders push his way out of Cleveland, or should he stick it out and hope the Browns finally come to their senses? And just as important, will the Colts be crazy not to take this swing? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And make sure you're subscribed, because when this deal goes down, and trust me, it's coming, you're going to want every angle, every update, every twist as it unfolds. This story is just getting started.